got your ribbon. I think I'd go for the beach.
Yeah, I got to.
You can take a personal tour with Debbie anytime.
Yeah. And she'll be here tonight, won't she?
That's my guess. Should be here.
I'll put it on request.
Oh, somebody else popped in. Oh, hey, how are you, sir? Where have you been to get all tan?
Working.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Legitimately.
Oh, thanks. That's good. I listened to it. Mhm.
Just got a great name, spell some time.
Yes. Firefly Lane Ball, and the Nightingale.
Yes. With the dust.
Those are my top two. Oh, the Greater One, in Alaska. That's my favorite.
But what about the dust bowl?
Oh, Four Winds. Yeah, that one's sad too.
Yeah, see? She's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one I listened to on Audible. Oh,
You've read Four Winds, right? About the dust bowl? Did not. Oh,
I might have that one at home. Like you have a lot of time.
I do. It's the book's on today.
Yeah, I like that Audible one. I usually have one I'm listening to and one I'm reading. So,
Hello. They're having too much fun in there.
I don't recall that much.
It can't be that fun of a meeting.
it's good that they're laughing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, like, what beach y'all go to?
We're going to Virginia Beach. We're going to Hilton Head and all that. We're going to Myrtle Beach too. So just up and down there.
Yeah, that's fine. I have to be local. Summer, in their restaurant down there. I hadn't been in years, but yeah. Do you play golf? No. Lawn bikes?
Yeah. Yeah. Just enjoy the outdoors there. So,
Yeah. I like their nice flat.
yeah.
So not, that's right. Wouldn't go.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, just so you know, our live stream is going in the back. We're live. Just so everybody knows. Everybody can hear everything. So don't want anybody to be caught off guard. I'll remind people as they can. You can find it talking. Know that it's on.
I also learned
Oh, so the stream. So I edited the back. Yeah, back.
Like just go back.
So
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
send them an email.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Make sure that you're.
That's,
You bring something over?
Oh, yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
Travel,
But just-
where you going? Yeah, I know we shared that before. We're going again in April. We'll have to ask this question. Who in- Four days there, 3 or 4 days there, and 3 or 4 days in Smart Market. We've never done a trip to northern here. Yeah. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Hey, Stephanie, how are you? Hey.
Just so you all.
The Goochland County School Board hereby certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Goochland County School Board. Each board member responds, "I so certify" when called.
Mrs. Allen,
I so certify.
Mrs. Moses,
I so certify.
Mrs. Maxwell,
I so certify.
Mrs. Robinson,
I so certify.
and Mrs. Worsing.
I so certify.
Thank you, Dr. Cromartie. I hereby reconvene this July 9th, 2024 meeting of the Goochland County School Board. Good evening to those of you attending in person and online. We are pleased to have you here with us for the business of public education in Goochland. Thank you for joining us. Will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Ms. Worsing, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Board members, I will entertain a motion for additions, amendments, or adoption of the proposed agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Madam Chair, I second that.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We will go with the agenda as presented. Dr. Cromartie, you have some announcements for us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. The Blue Ridge, Virginia Governor's School will host its freshman orientation tomorrow, July the 11th. I want to note a location change for our school board retreat next Thursday, July the 18th. That's now going to be at Luck Company, 515 Stone Mill Drive in Madigan 7. That's going to start promptly at 9 o'clock. Our new teacher academy will be from August the 5th through the 8th at the high school. We will host convocation on Monday, August the 12th at 2 p.m., also at the high school. The regular meeting of the school board for the month of August will be August 13th at 5:30, right here at the County Administration Building. Goochland Middle School's Eagle Evolution will be hosted on Wednesday, August the 14th from 9 to 2 at the middle school. Also, we'll have ninth grade orientation at the high school on Wednesday, August the 14th from 9 to 2. Elementary back to school night, Thursday, August the 15th from 4 to 7, and this includes kindergarten orientation. And secondary back to school night, Thursday, August the 15th from 5 to 8 p.m. We'll host a Title I orientation on Thursday, August the 15th at Byrd Elementary School. That event will start at 6 p.m. And our first day of school, if folks can imagine that here, will be August the 19th, 2024. Madam Chair, that concludes our announcements.
Thank you, Dr. Cromartie. I feel like summer just started and we're already preparing to be back into the full swing of things.
I was so tempted not to make that last one, but I figured I'd better put it out in the universe. Thank you.
We look forward to welcoming our students and teachers back on August 19th. That's really exciting. At this time, we welcome public comment on matters germane to the business being conducted. Speaker comment, contact information with Dr. Cromartie this evening. You see that our school board, Ms. Bennett, is not with us tonight. Please state your name and address for the record. The public comment period is now open.
Hello, everybody. Happy summer. Oh, yeah, does that work? Okay. Let me get going. Jen Strozier, Oilville, Virginia. This is about the SBMA, SBA. Shelley Norton of the School Board Member Alliance, the SBMA, and Darlene Dawson, an Orange County, Virginia board member who voted to leave the SBA, were interviewed on Jerry Miller Now, a radio podcast, on June 26th of this year. They claim the mission of SBMA is to inform school board members of what they can do, not what they can't. They claim that the VSBA, the 100-plus-year-old Virginia School Board Association, which has been offering training for school board members, only teaches school board members to rubber stamp whatever their superintendent wants by way of budget and policy. We all know that the school board elected in 2011 did not rubber stamp anything. They hired great superintendents and worked with them to create the award-winning school system we have today. It's concerning that this board is looking to join an association that is not aware of that and seems to be ignorant of the way that this county school board has been interacting with their superintendents and staff. Ms. Norton also claims that school board members aren't allowed in schools. Again, maybe SBMA is suited for other localities, certainly not Goochland, where school board members are expected to be seen in school, in classrooms, at community events, and celebrations. It's odd how much they don't know about Goochland. Further, they erroneously state in 2017, academic achievement started to decline, and that's when equity came into our school system. Number one, Goochland Public Schools were doing great in 2017. Number two, I owned some great swag from Goochland's own Bulldog Advisory Committee for Equity in Education. Is the SBMA saying that equity has no place in education? Talk about not being plugged into our community. We in Goochland know that diversity and equity are what makes our community strong. Again, another doozy in this interview regarding education in general, quote, no one would say we are in better shape than even a century ago. A century ago, our schools were segregated. What is this organization trying to say without explicitly stating it? Neither SBMA's co-founder, Shelley Norton, nor the school board member interviewed had ever been to a VSBA meeting. They both believe that superintendents should not attend training. Superintendents are not allowed to join the SBMA. SBMA does not allow for its members to also be members of VSBA. SBMA charges $3,000 for a single day training. Hanover paid that last year. I am not making this up. SBMA files an easy filing form for their taxes, which means they have less than $50,000 in yearly income. They don't have the resources to provide training or professional development, which may be why they offer a Friends of SBMA membership for $100 to anyone except superintendents. SBMA is all for charter schools. That means money leaving our county to pay for private, unregulated education. SBMA in this interview called for closing schools, citing lower enrollment. Again, they are clueless about Goochland schools. Do we really want our tax dollars supporting an organization that has no clue about our specific circumstances? Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Strozier.
Mike Newman, 7211 Shinfield Avenue, Glen Allen. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Cromartie, I stand before you tonight and ask respectfully that you more carefully consider the school division's membership in the Virginia School Boards Association and all that that means. The Virginia School Boards Association was established in 1906 and has held its focus on leadership, advocacy, and support for school divisions. The VSBA has been unwavering in its service to school divisions over these many years and has always supported the broad scope of work in school divisions. And I might add, based on the last comment, the various work of school divisions, because every school division is different from the next one. And the goal is what's best for children. At your meeting last month, the idea of ending Goochland's affiliation and membership with the Virginia School Boards Association was very briefly mentioned without any details as to why you would consider such change. With only 6 months of active engagement in school board business, for the most part, what has happened that would prompt you to separate from VSBA? Their philosophy has not changed. Their mission and vision has not changed. Their business model has not changed, to my knowledge. What has occurred in 6 months that caused you to consider a change? And a change to affiliate with an organization that is not well known, not experienced, and limited history serving school divisions. I urge you to share your reasons with your constituents. Thankfully, you agreed to discuss the matter at your upcoming work session on July 18. Transparency has been a hallmark of our Goochland school boards over the past 12 years, which I personally can attest to. Members of this board have discussed the importance of what constituents think and have sought constituent input on many matters. As a resident of District 4, I am unaware of any conversation, survey, or desire to know what I or other residents think about separating from VSBA. You need to ask us and what we're thinking and on this and many other matters before you. Lastly, my work in education is approaching 50 years. And for all of those years, the Virginia School Boards Association has been an important affiliation and a resource providing networking opportunities, professional development, policy, and legal services. And I can say that as a teacher and principal and former member of this board, I appreciate and respect the Virginia School Boards Association, and I urge you to maintain the school division's membership. At a minimum, you need to identify the pros and cons, what's best about VSB, what's best about the other organization, and tell us what you're thinking. A motion to end membership or to approve a different membership is not enough and will not be satisfactory. Your consideration of any change absolutely demands more substance and explanation than has been provided so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond.
Good evening, Karen Horn, 3205 Doublebrook Road. I thank the two previous speakers, Ms. Strozier and Mr. Newman, for their detailed explanation and history of the VSBA, and they are correct. I want to talk a little bit about personal experiences. Having been a member and active in the VSBA for the 5 years that I served in this county, and I found that the experience was eye-opening and enlightening and empowering to everyone that's involved in public education. The events that I attended, we were often offered choices. So in addition to the choices, the speakers were members themselves. So we had superintendents, we had school board members, in addition to experts in the field. We had governors from both parties speak to us at meetings. We had police officers. We had a whole gamut of professionals and people that all were focused on making sure that our children are thriving in our public schools. Again, this choice was very important because at an event, as Mr. Newman said, there were a diverse group of members. In fact, there were some times that there were people at the table that I totally did not agree with. They were asking me about whether I was carrying guns and how important that was, and these things that were not involved. So that they were very different, but they were from different communities. And they sought out different topics at their meeting to serve their communities. So I was able to select activities and information that was important to Goochland County Public Schools. And I think that that's important because as an organization, they are nonpartisan and they do offer a lot of different information. They don't tell you what you can't do. They give you information that works. This is my division and this is how it works here. And this worked great. You're able to take those ideas and they're not just theory. They actually worked in a school community. And the speakers provide data on how that worked. That is what information that you need as a school board member. You haven't served long enough to be able to judge whether that organization is going to help you or not. Would also like to note that your decision about VSBA is more about a culture war. We know that you all ran as official Republicans, and the official Republican agenda included that the information that VSBA was a bad organization. So you're really talking more about power than how belonging to this organization is going to support the mission and our strategic plan in Goochland County Public Schools. So think about your motivation. Think about the fact that you are new. Think about, gosh, there's so many ideas out there. If you stick to SBMA, you're only going to get people that believe one way. You're not going to get this open, diverse, thoughtful conversations that you would have from an organization with the history of VSBA. So thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to hearing the amazing advisory committee board members, comments tonight because they do great work in our school division. They know what our mission is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horn.
Steve Hardaway, Gum Spring. I didn't prepare any notes or anything to do today, but I didn't know anything about it. Well, I went to the last meeting, and y'all were kind of discussing these two groups. But I know that the state school board and the federal school board are not looking after the kids. They have their own agenda. I think the school educational department should be local. I think we need to get back to local governance. And I think that's what's going to be the best for the students, for the kids in general. And I also think that God should be involved in it. I don't think anything we do here on this earth should not have God involved in it. And we should be looking up to Him for answers, for the wisdom, for the courage, and for guidance. I see some of these states are putting the 10 Commandments back in the schools where they belong. It's historical. This nation was founded on Christian values. And I think we need to get back to that. The Constitution was guided by the Bible. I know a lot of people are trying to say it wasn't, but it was. And the truth needs to be coming out. And people that don't believe in God, don't want to believe in God, don't want to believe in the truth, don't want to see the truth. I can't help you. God can help you. You can get back to God. God can show you the truth. And it was up to me. I mean, I've told people the truth. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. If it was up to me, I'd say, well, go on your way. But God tells me to love them people and to show them the way and to show them the truth. And anybody that really wants to see the truth, and I've heard people say you need to read the whole book before you condemn the book. Well, they should read the whole Bible. And in particular, they ought to read the book of John, as in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and read it with an open mind, and then see if you still don't believe in God. And I want to say a little prayer. Lord God Almighty, I pray, Lord, that you will send down your angels, Lord, and show these people the truth, to open their eyes to the truth. And Lord, that they will have the opportunity to choose you. And there's only one other choice. And I pray, Lord, in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I've not had a chance to provide public comment since before the election last November, so I wanted to extend my congratulations to each of you for winning in your respective districts, and I wish you all the best. I know very intimately how difficult this role is and how much time is involved in doing so, so thank you. I would like to echo the comments of Ms. Wendy Hobbs back at the February meeting, reminding the board that you are elected to represent every citizen and student in the district, regardless of whether or not they voted for you. You serve the citizens of this community and not special interest groups who are working to make specific politically motivated changes in schools across the nation. And this is why I feel compelled to speak tonight. Through minutes and watching the live stream meetings, I understand that the board is considering not paying the VSBA dues for the coming year. And at the June meeting, you all had voted unanimously to discuss this at your board retreat next week. I see on the agenda, though, that it does not include a public comment period, so I'm here to speak to that tonight. The Virginia School Board Association was founded in 1906. They are a voluntary, nonpartisan organization of Virginia school boards whose mission is to promote excellence in public education through leadership, advocacy, and services. And as I'm sure you know, the Virginia law requires 3 types of training for school board members: conflict of interest, FOIA, and professional development training as mandated by Virginia Code Section 22.1-253.13:5, also known as Standard 5, which establishes that every school board must require its members to participate annually in high-quality professional development activities at the state, local, or national levels on governance. The VSBA provides a number of educational opportunities for the school board and for individual school board members, including the Capitol Conference, which typically includes The Virginia Governor is a speaker, or the Virginia Secretary of Education. A school law conference, the VSBA Conference on Education, a legislative advocacy conference, numerous hot topic conferences throughout the year, and the VSBA annual convention meeting that occurs in November in Williamsburg. Many of these would satisfy the state's third requirement for professional development. I'm concerned. I feel like leaving the VSBA will put our schools at a disadvantage. We'll no longer have access to the VSBA's many resources and educational opportunities that we've consistently leveraged over the years to operate our board with integrity and continue to improve our schools. In addition to educational services of VSBA, they provide policy support, which is just support. It's not mandated that we have to use their policies. They also provide legislative advocacy opportunities. I had the privilege to serve on the VSBA board as a representative for our region, and also as the chair for the national or the federal relations committee, which gave us great access. We got to meet with our representatives here and in Washington, D.C., and I know we can do that on our own, but having the power of the VSBA behind us as a united group, when you see hundreds and hundreds of school board members from across the nation go up on Capitol Hill, it makes an impact and it gives us credibility. Having this support and access is incredibly important for us keeping a voice on how the policies impact us at the local level. So in new business at the February 13th meeting, there was a discussion around the invoice in the amount of $1,250, which was presented for payment for school board member dues to the School Board Member Alliance, the SBMA, and it was noted that Ms. Moses had already paid her dues at the SBMA as they offer individual memberships. The SBMA is a conservative-leaning group, which causes me some concern as you are elected to serve in a position that is non-partisan. And at the very least, if the SBMA is in the picture, I would hope that the school board would see the logic in maintaining their membership with a nonpartisan VSBA organization. So I strongly encourage you to continue to do so. Thank you for all you do for our schools, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'd like to leave some papers with Dr. Cromartie to get to the board members. One is around the development and adoption of the school board policies at VSBA, how they do that. It's not done in a vacuum. It is done with policy input from school board, 132 school divisions across the state. We get together, we discuss that, and then they vote on them at the annual conference as to what moves forward. And then also some misconceptions about the VSBA that people may have. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Marty. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to have a few minutes. I've been sitting here, I was here the last school board meeting, you were talking about moving on the Bushland County Public School from one organization to another. I think it's very unfair to move a school board, a school that's been in an association for so long, to another association without notifying all the members of the districts. I think if you want to do it the right way, to me, as the leader of the church, I'm the pastor of the Chief Cornerstone Baptist Church in Gushland. To me, the right way to do it, have a town hall meeting, and every board member sit down and discuss why you want to move the Gushland public school system from one organization to another, and let the members here, let them decide, give them an opportunity to have comments, okay? To me, it's just like me as being a pastor of the Chief Cornerstone Baptist Church, and I'm telling the Chief Cornerstone Baptist Church, I'm going to move you away from James River District Association. I'm going to move you away from the Tucker Hill Baptist Association. I'm going to move you away from the National Baptist Association without allowing them an opportunity to comment on why we're moving. I'm going to ask you to please consider having a board meeting, having a town hall meeting, and all the board members explain why you want to move Gushland from one organization to another. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Howard. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none, the public comment period is now closed. this time, we'll move to chair's comments. Each month I take an opportunity to address matters of interest to the community as they relate to our schools. I have a few topics tonight and look forward to sharing those with you briefly. First, I'd like to recognize one of our teachers, Mr. Daniel Allen, and the students who participated in the state FFA, Future Farmers of America Conference at Virginia Tech last month. They attended the annual convention and earned several awards, and we really look forward to welcoming Mr. Allen and those students when we're back in session for more public recognition later this fall. But what a great honor. We had 4 of our students earn their state degree for the FFA, and we're really pleased with all of the work that's been made for the students' growth in that field. Also want to recognize that we were informed by Dr. Cromartie, we recently were awarded the Virginia Outdoors Foundation grant funding. It's really exciting because it was $300,000, which was a significant contribution to our schools and will support the funding of a new learning park and some outdoor spaces at the new Goochland Elementary School. So much appreciation to the Virginia Outdoors Foundation for awarding us this generous grant. You've seen, if you haven't, it is available for public consumption, the agenda for the annual school board retreat next week. And one of the topics that's currently on the proposed agenda has to do with student cell phone usage. And kind of serendipitous, but today Governor Youngkin issued an executive order regarding cell phones in schools. We of course will be reviewing that order and considering both parent, teacher, administration input into the use of cell phones in our schools going forward. We welcome the public's comment on this important topic because we know it has far-reaching impacts on both student achievement outcomes, mental health, cyberbullying, and the like. So we really look for your engagement on that topic. If you have any other topics of interest that you would like for us to consider, please reach out to your school board representative. Also, this retreat is open to the public. There are details in there about the address to Luck Companies, and Diane Bennett, the school board clerk, is just asking that you contact her to notify her of your attendance so that we can ensure we have made appropriate arrangements to welcome the public to that. Looking forward to a productive day. That concludes my remarks this month. Dr. Cromartie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking back at the announcements that I made earlier, I realized that very much of what I wanted to talk about during my comments tonight is included in those remarks. A commonly held perception is that, well, for school administrators, is that when school is out, it's a break. I hear that all the time. I heard it yesterday from someone who should know better. And the assessment was, I bet you're glad that you have all of this downtime. And that's a quote. And I want to talk a little bit about what that downtime looks like for school administrators when kids aren't in school. Granted, 2,600 kids don't come to us every day like they do August through June. And we have a lot fewer buses on the road. But we are operating summer programs. Earlier this summer, we operated camps for STEM and the arts. We have very successful summer school programs that are concluding this week. But we've been working purposefully in the preparation for the 24-25 academic year. In the coming weeks, we're going to onboard new staff to include the many teachers we've been able to attract to Goochland under our new salary structure. We'll host orientations for students transitioning from 6th to 9th grades. We'll outline our focus and work at convocation, welcoming the division staff back for a new year. And a big event next Thursday, we're going to cut the ribbon at our new Goochland Elementary School, the state-of-the-art learning space. And I know that everybody in our community will be proud of that facility. Our preliminary data, and I emphasize the word preliminary, our preliminary numbers from the Virginia Department of Education are strong. Our students continue to demonstrate high academic achievement, and our over a decade-long streak of being one of the few school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia with all of its schools accredited will endure and will continue. We have a whole lot to be proud of, but we're not on break. Our sleeves are rolled up. This work never ends, and we are getting ready and are excited for the start of the 24-25 academic year. And as I said last month, and we'll say every month subsequent to this one, the best is yet to come. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Cromartie. At this time, we'll invite Dr. East to come and share a policy update for first reading. Good evening.
Good evening, all. I bombarded you, didn't I? It is summertime. I had some extra time to do some policy. I gave you a whole bunch to look at. But I only want to point your attention to two. The first one is EDC. We are proposing to delete it because the language in that policy also appears in another one of our policies, KG, Community Use of School Facilities, and the redundancy. So I just get rid of it. The other one, KGR, that's our Community Use of School Facilities, had a team of people working on this. It looks like a lot of substantive change, but there really isn't that much. And what we did was we clarified things, made it a little more coherent flow, and reflective of our practice. So a lot of the language that you see struck is really just moved from one location to another section that was relabeled. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Reese. Board members, do you have any questions on the first reading of these policies from the Policy Review Committee?
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Sure.
Board members, we have consent items before us. I'll entertain a motion to approve as a slate or approve specific items and pull out others for discussion. What's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve them as a slate.
Madam Chair, I second that.
We have a motion that's been properly seconded to approve the consent items as a slate. Is there any debate? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the consent items are approved. Okay, moving along. See, this is going to counter your public perception about how hard we're working in the summer. Sorry, Dr. Marty. Our next agenda item is related to informational items. We have advisory committee reports. Dr. Cromartie, did you want to pull out or address any of these?
Yes, ma'am. In our 2x2s earlier this month, we had some questions about the Advisory Committee for Equity in Education, and I had asked Dr. Fowler to come and talk with us about that particular committee. Other than that, there are also misses in the board report for Career and Technical Education Advisory Committee, Facilities and Safety Committee, Gifted Advisory Committee, Mental Health Advisory, Special Education Advisory, and School Health Advisory Board. All of these are very important committees that inform our work. So with that, I'll have Ms. Fowler come up for any questions. I'm sorry. Good gracious. Dr. Fowler, I'm terribly sorry.
Thank you. Is it all right if I have Henry Jones, who's the chair of the committee, also join me up here to answer any questions?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Fowler. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
My brain's still on the beach apparently from all that downtime that I've had.
We're just here to answer any questions that you might have about the report or the advisory committee in general. It was a productive year for ACE, and I certainly don't want to take anything that you might want to share, but we had really good conversation. Ms. Maxwell joined us in January for many of those around the purpose of the group. We realigned some of our bylaws to be more in keeping with the policies that the school board has established for the definition of equity, for instance. And yeah, it was just a good group. I think there was some question. There had been a school board advisory committee years ago called NSAC, which stood for Minority Student Academic Achievement Committee, right?
Minority Student Achievement Advisory.
This is why I need him. He's been here that long participating in the group. And in 2020, the group, as I was joining them, actually had been going through a process of looking at some alternative names, and that's when Advisory Committee for Equity in Education came up. They really liked the acronym, and that was voted in fall 2020. Any questions?
Board members, any questions?
I do have a question.
Ms. Horsey?
Okay, so we have advisory committees based on need. And you stated there was one prior to ACE being implemented. And on the report, it says Advisory Committee of Excellence in Education. Is that the name that it's?
No, ma'am, that must be a typo. It's for the Advisory Committee for Equity in Education, and that moniker, that name is established in your school board policy as well, that lists all the advisory committees. So I apologize if there's a typo.
Yeah. And so do you still see the need? I know that goal A, underneath the purpose, it was saying that issues relating to achievement of historically marginalized students. Where would you see that our students are, because I know we have non-discrimination policy, we have laws in place now. Where would you say we have marginalized students still?
Yeah, I think the answer to that lies really in the definition of equity that the school board has adopted. It talks about eliminating the predictability of outcomes based on external factors. So things like socioeconomic status, zip code, race, gender, all of those things that are listed in your policy. When we look at all of those different categories of students, we're doing great. We are far surpassing the rest of the state and our outcomes for all students, regardless of kind of how we slice it and dice it. But there are some predictable and continuing trends of lower success, academically speaking, for some of those subgroups that we look at. And that's why it's important to continue to look at them, to try to figure out, okay, what is the reason for that enduring difference, and how can we find success for all of our students?
Okay, so I know that we have presentations on our data, and we base our need for support based on their academic achievement and how they are doing, instead of just basing it on different factors. We should be, I like B underneath your purpose that says secure for all students in Goochland County Public Schools the highest advantage in academic, vocational, physical, and cultural and social education, because I think, we definitely want the message to be to all kids that they all are capable, that they all are able to achieve, that they've been given the abilities to do that if they take that responsibility and ownership to do that. So that was my question was the need, and because I look at the definition of marginalized, and that's to relegate to a group that's to an unimportant or powerless position in a society. So when I see that on this form, historically marginalized, I would hope that it's kind of ambiguous, and it's kind of like, so where do we see a time that we will be at a place in America that we don't marginalize a group?
Yeah.
So
understood, and
I don't want any students to get the idea that they're put in a group and they're less than. And that's the message that I worry about, is that a certain group of children would feel that they are less than.
Absolutely, and that excerpt, and I don't want to speak for Henry because as the chair, he wrote that, but I think that was kind of copied over from the year before with amendments to the bylaws. It's right out of the bylaws, the purpose of the group. And so the phrasing that you're referencing, we certainly could take a look at again as ACE, since they do vote in the bylaws. But it was a attempt to capture that the school board definition of equity in fewer words, honestly, to look at all those different things.
There was a part of the report, VCIC, the Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities, and Jonathan Zur, the president and CEO. Can you tell me a little bit more about that organization?
Yeah, VCIC, Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities. We've had a partnership with them that goes back, gosh, definitely more than a decade, I want to say a dozen years now, where they've been doing some professional development for new teachers going back that far. For the past several years, they've been doing professional development related to building a sense of belonging and a sense of community within our schools for all of our staff. And it's just been a very fruitful partnership with them that I think the data, and I'm certainly not ready to do that data presentation tonight, but the data on our sense of belonging and inclusion survey really shows the effectiveness of the trainings, because they're working with our staff, but our staff is boots on the ground working with our students to make sure that every student feels included and, as you said, empowered to find success, whatever that looks like for them in the school. And so we've got some really exciting data to share there as well.
Okay. Well, I appreciate both of you coming to speak and share. And I know I can talk with Ms. Maxwell too, because I'm looking forward to hearing what your goals are for the upcoming school year, as far as what outcomes do you want to see at the end, what for the advisory committee, why we have it, and what's the end game in that.
And the really good news is that the board has a great say in that, right? They're an advisory committee to the board to share any concerns that are coming through them. But the school board policy that relates to setting goals, we always start our year and on ACE reviewing those school board goals so that we can align our actions to support those goals.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just have a quick question. So we didn't get to do the community event that we were planning on doing, which I was actually really looking forward to. So that was kind of a bummer. Are we gonna do something like that this year?
That's the plan.
Yeah, it's up to the group and what that might look like. We certainly did so much planning for that event, and I think are ready to hit the ground running with it. So that will be fodder for our first discussion, our first meeting of the year. But that is, I think, the plan.
Yes. And I just have one comment, Ms. Worthing. You had mentioned about kids taking in consideration historically marginalized, the way it was written, them thinking that they would be in that position. Part of that was written because of personal experience from students not thinking they were in it, that they felt they were already in it. So that's why I still feel like that still needs to be addressed. And just being an educator, having that everyday experience, we continue to see this, hear this, and that. And so that's why it was written the way it was written. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. James. Can I follow up on that? How is that manifest for those students that are expressing that? Is there, because as Ms. Worsing mentioned, like, we've got really clear non-discrimination policies. We have very clear policies against bullying. We have it. So I'm hypersensitive to, is it someone feels that way, or there's an outward event that needs to be addressed? We have a separate behavior issue by another student or group of students that has put them in that position. And if I'm asking you to speculate too much, that's okay. I'm just trying to unpack it a little bit.
That would be more speculation. I mean, it's a combination of things. It's not just one particular thing. So yes, there is some exposure that is happening at the level, at my level as an educator and other educators as well. I also think it's something that's stemming from society itself in general. It's something that we have to continue to work on. And that's why I still continue to be part of this committee. Been on it since 2014, I believe. So I wasn't at its inception, but a couple of years afterwards, Ms. Milton, a prior educator, asked me to be a part of it. So that's why I continue to be on it. It was a huge learning curve for me. I had a lot to learn from the beginning. I walked in saying that I was colorblind to things, and I have now understood why someone on the committee said you can't be colorblind to things that are, things like this. So I've learned a lot. I still believe I have a lot more to learn. A
Hopefully I won't make too many mistakes. I hope I continue to grow in this area, but it has been very enlightening being a part of this committee, so.
And if I can, I would like to share too that a change in the past couple of years, so it wasn't in this year's report, it started last year, was we do have students who join us from time to time from the Bulldog Advisory Committee for Equity in Education, so that we make sure we're always kind of having that input of current students to hear their voice and what their lived experiences in the schools, and not just always harken back to earlier days and experiences there. And we acknowledge that when we're trying to build a community of inclusion for all students, we are adults and can be inclusive and we can try to build that community, but the students are such a huge part of it. And so they have to be on board with that as well and be a part of making everyone feel included.
Thank you both. There's several thoughts running through my mind. And I think we'll probably unpack some of this at our school board retreat next week, because we do have our school board equity goals as one of our agenda items. So I think there's a lot that we as the board, you as administrators, teachers can set policies, set appropriate procedures, expectations. But there's also part of this whole equation which we have zero control over. And so I'm sensitive to where our work ends and the other world begins. And I'm not saying we stop influencing people to do right, that's not my point. My point is, like, there's a hole in the bottom of the cup, you'll never fill the cup.
BCIC starts many of their meetings with us saying that their goal is to work themselves out of business. And so I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, processing. It's great.
Just one more thing. I think it's going to be good that we do talk about that a little bit, because we want to make sure that we have policy, we have state law, national, federal, and we want to see if there's a disconnect, because it shouldn't. If it's in policy and we have it already saying that we're non-discriminatory, it should be not happening in our schools. So for me, the concern is, where is that happening? Where is that not being met? Because it's not allowed to do that to anybody. And all kids need to come to school, be able to have that focus on high expectations for all of them, because all of them are capable.
Thank you both so much for coming and sharing with us tonight. Really appreciate it. And Mr. James, thank you for your decade of service on this committee.
Thank you, Dr. Fowler, Mr. Jones.
Dr. Camardi, were there any other advisory committee reports you wanted to call out or speak to?
No, ma'am. I invited Dr. Fowler, who also invited Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones, thank you, especially because I know that this is your non-contracted time to be here to talk about this important work. So thank you both. The next item under information is a schedule of our student fees for the upcoming academic school year. And again, that's put in for the board's information.
Thank you, Dr. Camardi. Board members, are there any questions on the student fees that were shared for your review? No action is needed by us. This is informational only. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. We now will move to number 9. We do have an action item this evening. Before we begin, I'll entertain a motion to consider the business of approval of an additional agent.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Camardi, will it be you or it can't be Ms. Weiss, she can't really represent herself. Will it be you who is speaking to this
It will
action
be me. I'll speak to this event. So as we've made pretty widely known, Debbie White is going to be transitioning away from the school division full-time in either October or November this year. And as part of our transition plan, Mrs. Weiss has elevated and has taken on a larger role in school finance. This will, if the board approves this, this will authorize Ms. Weish as a signing agent so that she's able to execute contracts and delegated authority to examine and approve the claims as the motions here for those financial obligations for the school board for a period of July 1 of this year through December 31 of this year. And then Ms. Weish will be included with all of the other certifications in January when we reorganize.
I actually have a question about that.
So we can only take questions after we have a motion to approve it. So I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Stephanie White as agent authorized to sign contracts and delegated authority to examine and approve claims for all financial obligations for school board for the period of July 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve Ms. Weish as an authorized agent. Now I'm happy to entertain discussion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Should that not be until, from now until the time of our organizational meeting? Do we not have like a week and a half in January of no one signing?
I understand. We will come back from winter break and have a few days before we have our January meeting. I certainly can sign in that meantime if that is a period for us, but we just wanted to maintain our decorum of appointing our designees at that organizational meeting and didn't want to go beyond that or up to that.
Great question, Madam Vice
Great
Chair.
question.
Yeah, and it's because Ms. Weish would be an additional agent. We already have Dr. Camardi and I think Dr. Geyer. Yep, I'm looking at him for confirmation. We already have other agents, but in an accounting and finance capacity, Ms. Weish would start to serve as an additional agent. So thank you for the question.
Excellent question.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Ms. Weish, you are now an additional authorized agent. Thank you for your service. Moving to item 10, per our usual policy, we have a couple of items for board review that Dr. Camardi and the team have provided. Dr. Camardi, anything in particular you'd like to highlight here?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to talk about both of these items, or each of these items, I should say. One, to celebrate the work that we've done, and then to talk a little bit about the challenges that we have remaining under average daily attendance. When you look at our totals for average daily attendance for this year, it looks like we're right at around 91%. And for folks hearing those data, they would think, wow, that's fantastic. There are over 9 out of 10 kids every single day who come to school. But when we start to unpack that, the 9% that are unaccounted for here represents over 200 kids who aren't with us every single day. So we acknowledge that while that would seem a savory statistic for a lot of places, we do have a lot of work to do around our average daily attendance. And there's a commitment to increase that. The second item I wanted to talk about with regard to thanks for some gifts received for the month of June. We received donations totaling $1,100 from private citizens to advance our boys basketball camp, our Best Buddies program at Goochland High School, and unspecified student needs at Byrd Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Camardi, and thank you to our citizens who continue to invest in our schools and our students. We'll look forward to seeing your gifts pay great dividends. With school starting in, I think we said 40 days, very soon. Moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, everyone involved, start thinking about your plan now of what your routines look like as you transition from a summer schedule back to a school day schedule. there's no greater benefit to the success of your child's academic achievement than them being at school every day, prepared to learn, consistently engaged in their school community. So we look forward to welcoming them on August 19th. Board members, that brings us to the best topic of all. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I motion to adjourn.
I second.
Fantastic. The Goochland County School Board will reconvene at 9 a.m. on Thursday, July 18th, for our annual school board retreat, and that is at Luck Companies at 515 Stone Mill Drive in Mannequin-Sabot. Members of the public who are interested in attending should contact our school board clerk, Ms. Diane Bennett, so we can be prepared to welcome you. We are hereby adjourned.
Congratulations.